I can't control myself around you, the knight said, taking the lost woman to his fire. The snowstorm rages in the black forest. A weary knight, disgraced by his own order, finds a woman half frozen on the road. Against every vow he ever swore, he carries her to his fire, and in that single moment, his heart begins to burn with a forbidden flame. But inside the stone walls of the castle, danger waits. Whispers of cowardice haunt the knight, and the woman he saved is ordered to spy on him or be cast out. Then a jewel goes missing, and the blame falls squarely on her. She knows the truth could destroy them both, or set them free forever. Will a knight bound by oath risk everything for the woman who holds his honor in her hands? Or will firelight turn to ashes when the court calls for blood? Comment below and tell me where in the world you're joining from. And if this story made you pause for a moment, hit that subscribe button for more. The bitter winter wind howled through the black forest, whipping snowflakes into stinging swirls. Anna Bauer clutched her precious bundle of garments closer to her chest, shielding the Baroness's fine silks from the relentless storm. Her worn cloak offered little protection against the biting cold that seemed to pierce straight through to her bones. The sun, already low in the winter sky, was rapidly disappearing behind thick, dark clouds. Anna squinted through the swirling snow, her heart sinking as she realized the familiar path had vanished beneath the deepening drifts. The markers she usually relied upon, the twisted oak, the stack of woodcutter's logs, the ancient stone wall, were all hidden beneath winter's white blanket. "Dear Lord," she whispered, her chapped lips trembling, "I've missed the turn to the village." Her thoughts turned to her small rented room above the baker's shop, with its tiny window and creaking floorboards. Though humble, it was warm and safe a haven she feared she might never see again. Each step became more difficult as the snow rose past her ankles. Her legs grew heavy, muscles aching from fighting against the drifts. The bundle of garments felt heavier with each passing moment, though she dared not drop the Baroness's precious silks. Even in her desperate state, Anna knew the punishment for damaging a noble's property would be severe. Just a little further, she encouraged herself, though she had no idea which direction would lead to safety. Her teeth chattered as she stumbled forward, her prayers becoming more urgent. "Please, Lord, send me aid. I cannot die here, alone in the cold." Through the thickening curtain of snow, a faint golden glow caught her eye. Hope flickered in her heart, but her strength was failing. Her knees buckled, and she fell forward into the soft, cold embrace of a snowdrift. The last thing she saw was that distant, promising light among the trees. "Miss? Miss?" A deep voice cut through the darkness that had begun to claim her. Strong arms lifted her from the snow, and she felt herself being cradled against a broad chest. Anna's eyes fluttered open to find herself looking up at Sir Matthias von Falkenried's concerned face. Even in her half-conscious state, she recognized the noble knight who had once shown kindness to her at the castle, speaking to her as though she were more than just a common seamstress. "Sir Matthias," she mumbled, trying to remember her place despite her addled state. "I apologize for troubling you, the Baroness's garments." "Hush now," he commanded, though his voice was gentle. He carried her toward the welcoming glow she had spotted earlier, a potene, small campfire sheltered beneath a crude lean-to of pine boughs. "Your life is worth more than any garment." He settled her near the fire, wrapping his own weathered cloak around her shoulders. The warmth began to seep back into her frozen limbs, bringing with it an awareness of their situation. A common woman alone with a nobleman, it was highly improper. "My lord, I should go." "Stay," Matthias said, his voice carrying an intensity that made her pause. His eyes, usually so controlled and distant, now held an emotion that made her breath catch. "I cannot control myself around you. Stay by my fire." The words hung in the air between them, heavy with meaning. Anna knew she should protest, should insist on propriety, but exhaustion and the hypnotic dance of the flames made her eyelids grow heavy. She found herself drifting into sleep, her cheek warmed by the FIRELIGHT dot through half-closed eyes. She watched as Sir Matthias settled himself on the other side of the fire. The flames cast flickering shadows across his noble features as he gazed at her, his expression a battlefield of warring emotions. Duty, desire, and something deeper, something that looked remarkably like tenderness, played across his face as he maintained his silent vigil as sleep finally claimed her. Anna's last conscious thought was of the strange twist of fate that had brought her here, to this moment, under the protection of a man who should have been as distant as the stars, yet somehow felt closer than anyone had since her husband's death. Dawn crept softly over the black forest, painting the snow-laden branches in pale golden light. Anna's eyes fluttered open to the gentle sound of metal against stone. Her heart leaped into her throat at the sight before her. Sir Matthias von Falkenried sat on a fallen log, methodically drawing a whetstone along the length of his gleaming sword. The knight glanced up, noting her startled expression. "Fear not, mistress," he said, his voice gentler than the previous night. "I merely prepare for my duties." The blade caught the early morning light, throwing silver reflections across the snow dawn. Anna sat up slowly, adjusting her cloak around her shoulders. The small fire had burned low, but still provided welcome warmth against the morning chill. "What duties call you forth so early, Sir Knight?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Matthias sheathed his sword with practiced grace. "I ride to Falkenried Castle to escort a noble envoy." A shadow crossed his face as he added, "Though my welcome there may be less than warm. My standing at court is not what it once was. I, too, make my way to the castle," Anna said, reaching for her bundle of garments, relieved to find them undamaged by the storm. "I am but a seamstress, commissioned by the Baroness von Reichenbach for her winter wardrobe." "A seamstress?" Matthias's expression softened. "Then allow me to see you safely to the castle gates." Though he hesitated, his jaw tightening. "I must warn you that being seen with a knight may invite unwanted gossip." Anna nodded, understanding the delicate nature of their situation. "You are kind to offer, Sir Knight. The path ahead still seems treacherous." As they walked together, leading Matthias's horse through the thinning snowfall, their conversation turned to deeper matters. Anna spoke of her simple faith, her words carrying the quiet wisdom of one who had known both joy and sorrow. "In my darkest hours," she confided, "I have found comfort in God's grace. Even a humble seamstress can know his love." Matthias listened intently, his own burdens seeming to weigh heavily upon his armored shoulders. "My vows bind me to a strict code," he replied. "Honor, duty, service, these are the foundations of a knight's life." Yet sometimes, he trailed off, looking troubled as they approached the castle. The road widened and other travelers appeared. Peasants working in the nearby fields paused in their labors, bowing as custom demanded, yet Anna noticed their reluctance, the way their eyes slid away from the knight beside her. "There rides the merciful one," a woman whispered to her companion, loud enough to carry. "The knight who spares peasants." The words seemed to strike Matthias like physical blows. His spine stiffened, though he kept his gaze forward, dignity intact despite the whispers that followed their progress. The great castle loomed before them, its stone walls rising stark against the winter sky. The portcullis creaked slowly upward at their approach, chains rattling in their ancient tracks. Anna turned to her companion, gratitude warming her voice despite the chill air. "I thank you for your protection, Sir Matthias," she said softly. Before he could respond, one of the guards at the gate let out a derisive snort. "Look who returns, the knight who spares peasants," he called to his fellow guard, malice clear in his tone. Matthias's face flushed with shame, though he held himself rigid, every inch the knight despite the mockery. The proud set of his shoulders could not quite hide the pain in his eyes as he guided his horse through the gateway, leaving Anna to follow in his wake. Anna stood in the grand hall of Reichenbach Castle, her head bowed as she presented the carefully wrapped bundle of garments to the Baroness. Afternoon sunlight streamed through tall windows, highlighting the intricate tapestries and polished oak furnishings that spoke of centuries of noble living. The delay caused by the storm had made her late, but she dared not speak of her rescue by Sir Matthias. Inexcusable tardiness, the Baroness declared, her voice sharp as winter frost. She sat straight-backed in her carved chair, her gray-streaked hair arranged in elaborate coils beneath a lace cap. The finest silks from Vienna, left to weather in whatever hovel you sought shelter in. Your pardon, my lady. Anna kept her eyes downcast, though her fingers trembled slightly as she smoothed the wrapping cloth. I assure you the garments remain protected. The Baroness's lips thinned as she examined a blue silk gown. You will remain in service until I am satisfied your debt is paid. Now, attend to the great hall. The servants need direction for tonight's supper. As Anna backed away with a curtsy, voices drifted from a nearby alcove where several courtiers gathered. Their words, though hushed, carried clearly in the vaulted chamber. Did you hear about von Falkenried? A woman's voice dripped with scorn. During the raid on those rebel villages, he ordered his men to spare the peasants. A knight who cannot follow orders is worse than useless. Indeed, replied another. They say he even helped some escape. His family name is thoroughly dishonored now. Anna's heart ached at their cruel words. The man who had saved her life, condemned for showing mercy. She busied herself with arranging table linens, trying to appear deaf to the gossip, while her mind whirled with this new understanding of her rescuer. Later that afternoon, the Baroness summoned Anna to her private solar. The older woman stood by the window, her severe profile outlined against the failing light. Come closer, girl, Anna approached, noting how the Baroness's fingers worried at her prayer beads, a sure sign she was plotting something. You move quietly through the castle, the Baroness said. The servants trust you. I have a task that requires discretion. She turned, fixing Anna with her hawk-like gaze. Watch Sir Matthias von Falkenried. Report to me his conversations, his associations. I must know where his loyalties truly lie. The command struck Anna like a physical blow. How could she spy on the man who had saved her life? Yet to refuse the Baroness meant losing her position, and possibly worse. Yes, my lady, she managed, though the words tasted bitter. That evening, Anna served wine at the formal supper, moving between the long tables with a heavy crystal decanter. The great hall blazed with candlelight, the air thick with the smell of roasted meat and wood smoke. She found her eyes drawn again and again to Sir Matthias, seated far down the table among the lesser nobles. He sat straight-backed in his chair, maintaining dignity despite the empty seats beside him. While other nobles ignored him, she noticed how he thanked each servant with quiet courtesy. Then, as she passed near his seat, their eyes met across the crowded hall. Time seemed to stop. In his gaze, she saw the same gentle strength that had warmed her by the campfire. He offered a slight nod of recognition, careful not to draw attention, but Anna felt the connection like a thread of gold in the candlelight. Later that night, in the quiet of the servants' quarters, Anna knelt beside her narrow bed. Her single candle cast dancing shadows on the rough stone walls as the winter wind rattled the wooden shutters. She clasped her hands tightly, seeking guidance in prayer. Dear Lord, she whispered, show me the right path. How can I betray one who showed such kindness? Yet how can I defy my mistress? Her candle flickered, as if in sympathy with her troubled heart. Outside, the wind continued its mournful song through the castle's ancient stones, offering no answers to her plea. Morning light filtered through the stained glass windows of the castle chapel, casting jeweled patterns across the stone floor. Anna moved quietly among the wooden pews, her broom whisking away the previous day's ashes near the altar. The chapel stood empty save for a lone figure kneeling before the cross, Sir Matthias von Falkenride, his head bowed in prayer. The soft scrape of her broom must have caught his attention. He turned, recognition softening his features. "Good morrow, Mistress Bauer." "My lord." Anna dipped into a curtsy, her cheeks warming at the memory of their shared night by the fire. Matthias rose from his knees, his weathered cloak settling around his broad shoulders. "I must thank you for your discretion regarding our encounter in the forest. The court finds enough reason to whisper without adding fuel to their gossip. There is nothing to tell, sir." Anna continued her sweeping, though her hands trembled slightly on the broom handle. "You showed Christian charity to a soul in need. Nothing more." He stepped closer, his voice dropping low. "Few here would see it so simply." A bitter smile crossed his face. "Just as they saw only weakness when I refused to raise my sword against innocent villagers." Anna's hands stilled on the broom. "The border raid they speak of?" "Aye." Matthias moved to light a candle before the Virgin statue, his movements deliberate. "We were ordered to make an example of a village suspected of harboring bandits. But when we arrived," he closed his eyes, remembering. "Children playing in the street. Women hanging wash. No weapons, no resistance, just simple folk trying to survive. You could not strike them down." Anna whispered. "I could not." "Would not." His jaw tightened. "I ordered my men to stand down. We searched the village properly, found no bandits, and left them in peace. For this mercy, my order branded me a coward." Anna stepped forward, drawn by the pain in his voice. "Then your order knows nothing of true courage, my lord. It takes more strength to stay a blade than to swing it." Their hands met at the candlestick, fingers brushing as they both reached to light another taper. The touch sent a jolt through Anna's body, and she saw Matthias stiffen beside her. For a heartbeat, neither moved. "I have sworn vows," he said roughly, though his hand lingered near hers. "Chastity, obedience, service to the order above all else." His eyes met hers, dark with conflict. "Yet my heart burns against these bonds, growing stronger with each passing day." Anna's breath caught in her throat. The morning light painted his face in gold and shadow, highlighting the torment in his expression. She should step away, return to her duties, preserve the proper distance between them. Yet she remained, her pulse racing at his nearness. The deep toll of the chapel bells shattered the moment. First bell for morning mass. The castle would soon stir to life. "I must go," Anna whispered, gathering her broom with trembling hands. "The Baroness will expect me." Matthias straightened, struggling to recover his formal bearing. "Of course." "God keep you, Mistress Bauer." Anna hurried from the chapel, her feet carrying her swiftly through the cold stone corridors toward the Baroness's chamber. But her mind remained in that sunlit sanctuary, caught in the memory of his touch, his confession, the way his eyes had held hers with such desperate longing. Her heart thundered against her ribs as she climbed the narrow servants' stairs, knowing that nothing would ever be the same again. Evening. Shadows stretched across the great hall as dozens of beeswax candles flickered in their iron sconces. The air hung heavy with the aroma of roasted meats and fresh-baked bread. Anna's arms ached as she carried a heavy silver platter laden with roasted fowl toward the long wooden table where nobles sat in their finery. The Baroness von Reichenbach presided over the feast like a queen, her silver-threaded gown catching the candlelight. To her right sat her niece, Lady Sophie, demurely dressed in pale blue silk. Anna kept her eyes lowered as she placed the platter before them, but her ears caught every word of the whispered conversation between two noblemen. Nearby, "The knight needs a proper match to restore his standing," one said, swirling wine in his goblet. "The Baroness's niece would be most suitable." "Indeed," his companion replied. A marriage to Lady Sophie would wash away the stain of his unfortunate choices. Anna's hands trembled slightly as she stepped back from the table. Her heart clenched at their casual plotting of Matthias's future. She retreated to the serving area, watching from the shadows as the Baroness rose with calculated grace. "Sir Matthias," the Baroness called out, her voice carrying across the hall. "Pray join us. My dear niece would be honored by a dance." Matthias stood from his place at the lower end of the table, his face carefully neutral. He bowed with perfect courtesy, though Anna noticed a slight tension in his shoulders. "The honor would be mine, my lady." The musician struck up a stately pavan. Anna's throat tightened as she watched Matthias lead Lady Sophie onto the floor. They moved through the formal steps with practiced grace, the young noblewoman's tiny steps matching Matthias's measured stride, their hands touching briefly as the dance required. The Baroness looked on with obvious satisfaction, her sharp eyes missing nothing. "They make a handsome pair," she remarked loudly enough for nearby courtiers to hear. Anna busied herself clearing empty platters, fighting to keep her expression neutral as nobles nodded and murmured their agreement. Each time she glanced at the dancing couple, her chest grew tighter. Lady Sophie's youth and beauty seemed to mock Anna's plain working dress and calloused hands. Later, as the feast wound down and guests began to drift away, Anna hurried through a quiet corridor with an armload of linens. Quick footsteps behind her made her turn. "Mistress Bauer." Matthias's voice was low and urgent. He glanced around to ensure they were alone. "What you witnessed tonight, my lord need not explain," Anna interrupted softly, clutching the linens closer. "It is not my place to question such matters." "No." His blue eyes held hers intently. "You must understand. I have no affection for Lady Sophie, though she seems a gentle soul. My only desire is to serve faithfully, to restore honor to my name through honest service, not arranged marriages." Hope fluttered in Anna's chest, even as fear gripped her heart. "Yet they say such a match would restore your standing at court. At what cost?" Matthias stepped closer, his voice barely above a whisper. "To trap an innocent girl in a loveless marriage. To deny the truth in my own heart." The sound of approaching footsteps forced them apart. Anna hurried away, her pulse racing, torn between joy at his words and terror at what they might mean. That night, she lay on her thin pallet in the servants' quarters, staring into the darkness. The other maids whispered nearby, their voices carrying clearly in the quiet room. "It's all arranged," one said confidently. "The knight will wed Lady Sophie before the month is out. The Baroness has decided." "Poor man," another replied. "But 'tis better than remaining in disgrace." Anna turned her face to the wall as tears stung her eyes. She pulled her rough blanket closer, trying to muffle the sound of her ragged breathing. The maid's gossip continued, but she barely heard them through the roaring in her ears. Sleep would not come easily this night, not with her heart so full of fear and longing. The chapel stood silent in the deepening twilight, lit only by the soft glow of prayer candles. Anna's footsteps echoed softly on the stone floor as she carried a small bundle of winter roses toward the Virgin's altar. The familiar scent of incense and burning wax wrapped around her like a comforting embrace. As she drew closer, her heart skipped. A tall figure knelt in the shadows, his head bowed in prayer. That Sir Matthias von Falkenried turned at the sound of her approach. In the candlelight, his face bore the weight of sleepless nights. "Miss Bauer," he whispered, rising slowly. "I had hoped to find peace here tonight." "My lord," Anna curtsied, her fingers trembling around the flower stems. "I shall leave you to your prayers." "No," he said quickly, then softer. "Please stay. These past days have been—" He drew a ragged breath. "I cannot find rest. My thoughts are consumed." Anna laid the roses at the Virgin's feet, aware of his presence behind her. The marble statue gazed down with eternal compassion, as if understanding the turmoil in both their hearts. "My vows chain me," Matthias continued, his voice rough with emotion. "I swore myself to the order, to serve with honor. Yet, since that night in the forest, he stepped closer, close enough that Anna could feel the warmth radiating from him. I cannot silence my heart's voice. When I close my eyes, I see your face. When I pray for guidance, I hear your gentle words defending my mercy." Anna's hands clutched her skirts, her chest tight with feelings she dared not name. "My lord, we must not, Matthias," he corrected softly. "Here, before God's altar, let me be simply Matthias." She turned to face him, finding his eyes filled with the same longing that echoed in her soul. "Matthias," she whispered, the name like honey on her tongue. "I too have fought against these feelings. I have prayed for strength, for wisdom." Her voice wavered. "But each time I see you across the great hall, each time I hear the nobles mock your compassion, my heart," she pressed a hand to her chest, "my heart speaks only your name. You feel it too?" The hope in his voice made her knees weak. "This connection between us, this pull that defies all proper bounds." "I do," Anna admitted, tears gathering in her eyes. "God help me, I do. But your position, your vows." Matthias reached for her hands, enfolding them in his own. The touch sent warmth cascading through her entire body. "Here, before these sacred candles," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "I must speak truth. Though vows bind my actions, my heart has chosen its path. It beats only for you, Anna Bauer." Anna's fingers tightened around his. "And mine for you," she whispered. "Though duty and station divide us, my heart knows where it belongs." Together they turned to face the altar, their clasped hands trembling between them. Before God and his Holy Mother, Matthias spoke softly but firmly. "I swear this sacred oath, whatever storms may come, whatever trials we must face, my heart is yours alone. And I swear," Anna's voice was barely above a whisper, "that my heart shall remain true to you, through all that may come to pass." The moment hung suspended in the candlelit silence, holy and profound. Then, the sharp tap of footsteps echoed from the chapel entrance. They sprang apart, hearts pounding. Anna quickly adjusted her cap, while Matthias stepped back into the shadows. "I must go," she breathed, gathering her skirts. The approaching footsteps grew louder. "Go with God," Matthias murmured. Though his eyes spoke volumes more, Anna hurried from the chapel, her fingers wrapped tightly around her mother's rosary. Each wooden bead pressed into her palm, grounding her as her heart soared with both joy and fear. Behind in the chapel, Matthias remained, standing where they had clasped hands. His fingers traced the empty air where her touch had been, memorizing the feeling of her small hands in his own. The chapel bells tolled the evening hour, their bronze voices carrying across the castle grounds. But for two hearts beating in secret union, the world had already changed forever. The great hall blazed with light and warmth on the feast day of St. Stephen. Torches flickered in their iron brackets, casting dancing shadows on the tapestried walls. Musicians played lively tunes from the gallery, while nobles laughed and danced below. The scent of roasted meat and mulled wine filled the air as Anna moved carefully between the crowded tables, her pitcher ready to refill empty goblets. She caught glimpses of Sir Matthias among the revelers, looking uncomfortable in his formal attire as other knights clapped him on the shoulder, pressing him to join their revelry. Their eyes met briefly across the hall, and Anna felt the familiar ache in her heart. Since their secret oath in the chapel, they had barely spoken, though each glance they shared carried the weight of unspoken feelings. The Baroness von Reichenbach sat at the high table, resplendent in green silk, holding court among her favored guests. Her sharp eyes followed Anna's movements with barely concealed disdain. As Anna approached to refill the Baroness's goblet, the noblewoman suddenly stood, her face twisted with rage. "Stop!" The Baroness's voice cut through the music and merriment. "Where is my emerald brooch? The one I wore this morning?" The hall fell silent. All eyes turned to where the Baroness pointed an accusing finger at Anna. "You girl, you were in my chambers today." Anna's hands trembled on the wine pitcher. "My lady, I would never." "Search her work basket," the Baroness commanded. A guard hurried to obey, bringing forth the small basket where Anna kept her sewing supplies. The nobles gathered closer, their faces alight with cruel curiosity. The guard appended the basket's contents. Needles, thread, and scraps of fabric scattered across the floor. Then, glinting in the torchlight, a large emerald brooch tumbled out. Gasps and whispers filled the hall. "Thief!" someone called. Anna stared at the jewel in horror, her face draining of color. "No, please, I did not take it." Someone must have— "Silence! Silence!" The Baroness's voice cracked like a whip. "Will you deny the evidence before all these witnesses?" She turned to where Matthias stood among his fellow knights. "Sir von Falkenraid, you have spent time in this girl's company. What say you of her character?" Anna's heart pounded as she looked to Matthias. His face was pale, his jaw clenched tight. The other knights watched him closely, some smirking, others frowning. This was his chance to regain their respect, to condemn a mere servant and prove his loyalty to his class. Matthias opened his mouth, then closed it. His eyes met Anna's for one agonizing moment before he looked away. The silence stretched, heavy with betrayal. "Well?" pressed the Baroness. "Or perhaps your sympathies for peasants extend to defending thieves." Still, Matthias said nothing. His silence spoke volumes. Anna felt something inside her break, a pain sharper than any physical blow. "Take her belongings and cast her out," the Baroness ordered. "Let all know that thieves find no shelter at Falkenraid Castle." Rough hands seized Anna's arms. She did not resist as they dragged her through the corridors to the servants' quarters, where they threw her few possessions into a bundle. Tears froze on her cheeks as they marched her to the castle gates. The heavy iron portcullis rose with a grinding sound. Beyond lay darkness and swirling snow. Anna pulled her thin shawl tighter around her shoulders as the guards shoved her forward. "Be grateful the Baroness shows mercy," one sneered. "Thieves have lost hands for less." The gates clanged shut behind her. Anna stood motionless in the deepening snow, her world shattered. The castle windows glowed warmly above, the sounds of feasting still audible on the winter wind. Somewhere in that warmth was Matthias, who had chosen his reputation over truth, his peers over her heart. Clutching her shawl against the bitter cold, Anna turned away from the only home she had known. With leaden steps, she walked into the darkness, leaving behind both love and betrayal. The snow quickly covered her tracks as she disappeared into the night, her heart as numb as her freezing fingers. The winter night wrapped around Anna like an icy shroud as she stumbled along the snow-covered road, her thin shawl offering little protection against the bitter wind. Her feet, already numb, caught on hidden stones beneath the drifts. Tears froze on her cheeks as she remembered Matthias's silence in the great hall, the weight of his hesitation crushing her heart more than the cold ever could. Through the swirling snow, she spotted the dark shape of a barn looming ahead. With trembling hands, she pushed against the heavy wooden door. It creaked open just enough for her to slip inside. The sudden shelter from the wind made her gasp with relief. The barn smelled of hay and livestock, and she could hear the soft breathing of sleeping animals in their stalls. Anna sank down into a pile of fresh straw, her body shaking uncontrollably. She had not eaten since morning, and hunger gnawed at her empty stomach. As she huddled there, trying to warm herself, the barn door opened again. A woman's figure appeared, holding a lantern high. "Lord have mercy," the farmer's wife whispered, her weathered face creasing with concern. "What brings you here on such a night?" Anna tried to speak, but her teeth chattered too hard. The woman disappeared briefly, returning with a chunk of dark bread and a warm blanket. "Here, child. Eat this before you freeze solid." As Anna ate gratefully, the woman studied her face in the lantern light. "You're the seamstress from the castle, aren't you? Word travels fast. They say you were caught stealing." "I didn't steal anything," Anna managed between bites. "The brooch was planted in my things." The farmer's wife shook her head grimly. "Listen carefully, girl. Don't even think of going back. The Baroness's spite runs deeper than winter frost. She's ruined better folk than you or me for less. Take the road south tomorrow. Find work in another village." Anna nodded, though her heart rejected the advice. The woman left her then, taking the lantern but leaving the blanket. In the darkness, Anna curled up in the straw, pulling the rough wool around her shoulders. She had nearly drifted into an exhausted sleep when voices and flickering light approached the barn. Two men stumbled in, laughing and speaking too loudly. Nobles, by their rich accents, seeking shelter until their wine-addled heads cleared enough for the ride home. Did you see his face? One slurred, settling near the barn's stone hearth. "When they found that emerald in the wench's basket. Priceless. Our gallant Sir Matthias, trapped between duty and desire." The other man laughed cruelly. "Well done, slipping it there during the dance. Now he'll have no choice but to accept the Baroness's niece. Can't very well pine after a disgraced thief, can he? Poor fool actually thought he could reject a noble marriage for some common seamstress. This'll teach him where his loyalties should lie." Anna's heart pounded so hard she feared they would hear it in the darkness. She pressed her fist against her mouth to stay silent as the noblemen continued to boast about their scheme. Eventually, their voices grew drowsy, and they slept where they sat. Dawn's first gray light was seeping through the barn's cracks when Anna rose stiffly from her hiding place. Her mind was made up. She could not flee south and leave Matthias trapped by their lies. Both their honor needed defending, no matter the cost. The farmer's wife found her again as she prepared to leave. "Take our old donkey," she offered, seeing Anna's determination. "The poor beast is slow, but he's sure-footed in the snow. She hesitated. "Be careful, child. Some troubles aren't worth the price of fixing them." But Anna knew this one was. She mounted the donkey, tucking the blanket around her legs. The morning air bit at her face as she turned the animal's head back toward the castle. Each plodding step brought fresh waves of cold, yet her resolve burned warm in her chest. She had proof of their innocence now. She just had to find a way to make the truth known. The castle's towers appeared through the morning mist, dark against the pale winter sky. Anna urged the donkey forward, shivering but determined. Whatever awaited her there, she would face it with courage for herself. And for Matthias, Anna pushed open the heavy oak doors of the great hall, her heart pounding beneath her thin dress. Warmth and firelight spilled out, along with the sounds of revelry and feasting. Noble ladies in silk gowns twirled, while gentlemen raised gleaming goblets. The scene before her was so different from the bitter cold she had just left behind Dot at the far end of the long table. Sir Matthias sat alone, his shoulders bowed with shame. He had not touched his wine, and his face was drawn with days of inner torment. The sight of him made Anna's resolve strengthen. "My lords and ladies," she called out, her clear voice cutting through the music and chatter. "I beg your attention." The hall fell silent. Dozens of faces turned toward her, some sneering, others curious. The Baroness rose from her chair, face darkening with fury. "How dare you return, thief?" The Baroness spat. Anna lifted her chin. "I am no thief, your grace. I come to clear my name and expose the true criminal in this hall." Whispers rustled through the crowd, like wind through leaves. Matthias had risen to his feet, his face pale with shock at her appearance. "I overheard two noblemen in their cups," Anna continued. her voice steady despite her racing heart. One boasted of planting the emerald brooch in my basket, seeking not to harm me, but to disgrace Sir Matthias von Falkenried. Lord Edmund, a young noble near the wine cask, went white as chalk. His companion Lord Bernard backed away from him, leaving him exposed. She lies. Edmund shouted, but his voice cracked. Matthias's sword rang as he drew it from its scabbard. You would frame an innocent woman to destroy my honor. His voice trembled with righteous anger. I demand satisfaction. The hall erupted in chaos. Ladies gasped and drew back while men shouted and argued. Through the tumult, the great doors opened again, and the Duke of Falkenried himself strode in, his silver hair gleaming in the torchlight. What is this disorder in my hall? His commanding voice brought instant silence. Matthias knelt before him. Your Grace, I challenge Lord Edmund to defend his honor against these accusations. The Duke's keen eyes swept the scene. The challenge is properly made. Lord Edmund, do you accept? Edmund had little choice. To refuse would be to admit guilt. With trembling hands, he drew his own sword. The great hall was quickly cleared, creating a ring for the duel. Candles cast jumping shadows on the stone walls as the two men faced each other. Matthias's blade moved with practiced grace, while Edmund showed his fear. Steel rang against steel. Edmund attacked wildly, desperately, but Matthias met each blow with calculated precision. The duel's outcome was never truly in doubt. Within minutes, Matthias had Edmund disarmed, his sword point at the younger man's throat. Yield, Matthias commanded. Edmund fell to his knees. Mercy, I yield. Though justice demanded Edmund's life, Matthias lowered his sword. As I once showed mercy to innocent villagers, I show it now to you. May you learn from it better than I did from my own act of compassion. Anna stepped forward then, holding something that glinted in the firelight. Your Grace, she addressed the Duke. I found this where Lord Edmund dropped it while drinking at the farmer's hearth. She opened her hand to reveal the Baroness's emerald brooch. The Duke of Falkenried's face hardened as he looked at Edmund. He struck his staff against the floor 3 times, the sound echoing like thunder through the silent hall. Let all hear my judgment, he proclaimed. Sir Matthias von Falkenried has proven both his valor in combat and his nobility in mercy. His honor is fully restored. He turned to Anna. And you, woman, are declared innocent of all charges. The true thief has revealed himself. The staff struck the floor once more with finality. Lords and ladies bowed their heads, accepting the Duke's word as law. The Baroness sank into her chair, her face a mask of fury and defeat. Matthias and Anna's eyes met across the hall, both knowing that while justice had been done, greater challenges still lay ahead for their forbidden love. The Duke rose from his carved wooden throne, his velvet robe sweeping the stone floor. The great hall fell silent as he gazed down at Anna, who stood straight despite her threadbare dress and wind-tousled hair. His stern face softened as he studied her. In all my years, the Duke's voice rang out clear and strong, I have seen nobility displayed in unexpected places. True nobility dwells not in the circumstance of birth, but in the character of the heart. He descended the steps of his days, each footfall echoing in the hushed chamber. This woman, though born common, has shown uncommon courage. From this day forward, she shall have protection within my household. Whispers rippled through the crowd like wind through wheat. Ladies behind painted fans exchanged glances, while knights shifted in their polished armor. But before anyone could speak, Sir Matthias strode forward, his boots ringing against the flagstones. He dropped to one knee before the Duke, his sword laid across his palms. Your Grace, Matthias's voice carried to every corner of the hall. I must speak. When the Duke nodded, Matthias continued, his eyes finding Anna's. I love this woman. Not for a day, not for a season, but for all the days God grants me. I would make her my wife, if she will have me. More whispers erupted, some shocked, some scandalized. A noble lady swooned, caught by her maid. But the Duke raised his hand, and silence fell like a heavy curtain. Sir Matthias, the Duke's voice held warmth now, you have proven both your courage and your wisdom. The knight who shows mercy is stronger than he who deals death. You may wed whom you choose. His eyes twinkled. And I suspect you have chosen well. Anna's heart soared as Matthias crossed to her, taking her work-roughened hands in his. My beloved, he whispered, though all could hear, will you consent to be my wife? Tears spilled down Anna's cheeks as she nodded. Yes, she breathed, with all my heart. Yes. The next morning, the castle chapel bells rang out joyfully across the frost-covered courtyard. Their clear voices announced the banns of marriage between Sir Matthias von Falkenried and Anna Bauer. Children stopped their games to listen. Old women crossed themselves and smiled, and even the merchants in the marketplace paused to hear the glad tidings dawd as the weeks passed. Preparations filled the castle with bustling excitement. The Baroness, chastened by recent events, offered Anna a wedding dress of cream-colored wool, trimmed with lace. The castle cook prepared special breads and honey cakes for the feast. Even the stable boys gathered winter greenery to deck the chapel. On their wedding day, the chapel glowed with hundreds of beeswax candles. Their light danced off the stone walls and illuminated faces both noble and common. The Duke himself had decreed that all might attend, and so they did. Kitchen maids stood beside ladies in silk, shepherds beside knights, all watching as Anna walked toward her beloved. Matthias waited by the altar, his eyes never leaving her face. When they joined hands, the priest's blessing seemed to fill the entire chapel with golden light. Their voices rang clear and true as they spoke their vows, promising to love and honor each other until death should part them. Their marriage changed more than just their own lives. The court began to soften, as though Anna and Matthias's love had melted something frozen in many hearts. Knights who once sneered at peasants now listened to their troubles. Ladies who had turned away from beggars now stopped to offer bread and kind words. Mercy and virtue bloomed like spring flowers after winter's frost thawed in their modest new home. Built on land granted by the Duke, Matthias and Anna sat before their own hearth. The fire cast dancing shadows on the whitewashed walls as they nestled close together. His strong hand covered her smaller one, fingers intertwined. Do you remember? Matthias murmured. That night in the forest? When I found you in the snow. How can I forget? Anna smiled, touching his cheek. You said you could not control yourself around me, and I meant it. He drew her closer, his voice tender. I could not control myself around you then, and I never shall. My beloved. The firelight wrapped them in its warm embrace as they sat together, their hearts beating as one, their love a beacon of hope for all who knew them. If something in this story whispered to your spirit, stay a while. Subscribe and come back tomorrow. The next story may be the one you didn't know you needed.